In the last few days, the Biden administration spokeslady, Ms. Psaki, has made some comments about the degree to which they are working with Facebook and presumably soon other social media platforms to get rid of people that are challenging certain official lines on the COVID-19 vaccine. I'm not sure specifically what these people are saying. They declared it to be misinformation. And to some degrees, it may or may not be. I don't know. That's not the real issue. The real issue is something else, and that is previously, just a week back or so, the former President Trump announced a lawsuit against the major social media giants, and for basically for banning people from the platforms and so forth. Okay, and here's the key point. Up to that point, there was some argument that was very prevalent that because these platforms were private companies, they were free to do so, particularly with the Section 230 protections. And on the other hand, so that they could argue it was their First Amendment rights to put whatever was on the platform. But now that we see there's an actual collusion between the Biden administration, the government of the United States, if you will, and the same social media platforms, at least Facebook, and I think it would presumably spread to Twitter and even here on YouTube, to censor people, then that would be a governmental violation of the First Amendment, which is unconstitutional. So, interesting enough, these comments by the Biden administration spokeslady have effectively enhanced the probability of success of Trump's lawsuit and its credibility. Now, to say whether it will or will not, I mean, that's trying to predict what this erratic court system we have in this country will do. But I do think it gives him a lot of ammunition and probably a lot of means for discovery. That is to say, since this is on the public record, it would give some standing, I think, and some precedent to go into discovery to depose various people to see exactly what the government asked these companies to do and what they did and what they didn't do and why they did it and a variety of interesting issues of that sort. So at any rate, I'll go into this a little bit more detail here. First, I want to mention that if you like these videos, please subscribe to my channel, give me a like, and you can click the bell to get notified. That's another thing that I don't mention often, but that would help a lot with getting the message out to people because I don't think that necessarily YouTube is trying to get it out to you. So at any rate, so that's one thing to consider, is clicking the bell. Okay, so and anyhow, so I think as you can see, that this is before I think Trump was in a position where he was basically working with a few minor cases and a lot of inferences, and now the fact that it's officially on the record and it's being encouraged by the administration publicly, it's no longer a question of conspiracy theory. It's overt that there is a collusion between the Biden administration, i.e., the U.S. government, and these corporate entities. And another thing I think that needs to be considered here, and the problem is I think that the Republicans and the conservatives aren't nearly as in-depth at litigation as the Democrats have been. I mean, notice that within just a few days of Trump assuming office, they already had injunctions already against his ban on people from certain Islamic countries which have a history of terrorism. And so whereas we are just right now trying to get a court case going, and I think just had a hearing on trying to address the complete disregard of the law that Biden administration is doing with respect to our southern border. And I guess gives you an idea of the time frame differences. But one thing I would like to kind of address here is that another angle on this voter issue has been that a lot of these actions by these corporate entities, I think, could be challenged potentially under in-kind political contributions. I've seen very little being done on that, but like for instance, all the money that Facebook was putting into this support of drop boxes and things of that sort in the last election. But I don't believe these drop boxes were being put in highly Republican areas. They were being put primarily in Democrat-dominated areas for political purpose. And I think a good case could be made that that was in fact an in-kind political contribution that probably violates election finance laws. As just another example that we need to get much more aggressive on our litigation on these subjects because, the idea that the law is in any way fair or consistent is probably not really true. The reality is a lot of it's just driven by the personalities and political preferences of given judges that happen to get the case. And in many instances, these are supposed to be random assignments. Sometimes I'm amazed at how good the Democrat and liberal side is at getting the favorable assignment of a judge that they want. But so I don't know. I sometimes think maybe they have an inside hint into what the count is on the random assignment. I, for instance, noticed in many of the cases in D.C. against various personalities involved in the campaign, the various trials they had, it seemed like the same judge kept coming up getting the case, which was a Democrat judge. So you kind of wonder if there's something going on there. But at any rate, the idea is by having a multitude of lawsuits in different jurisdictions, there is a fair chance that you might strike gold, so to speak, and get one that will rule in your favor. And if it happens to be, for instance, in the Fifth Circuit, which tends to be a little more favorable to us, whereas the Ninth is very favorable to the Democrats, we might be able to get the thing even to survive appellate appeal and get to the level of the Supreme Court. Because that's one of the problems you have is that the Supreme Court usually is not that activist on our behalf anyhow. Sometimes they get a little activist on their behalf, but but that does seem to be the case. And so I think that's an issue that may actually help Trump's lawsuit out quite a bit. No guarantees here, and it depends on a lot of it on just what judges you get. I mean, there's the law in Florida, I think currently is being held up that was going to fine these social media companies for banning political candidates' statements, got held up at the district court level. So, and of course, I guess the state will appeal it, and who knows where that'll go. Well, if you get a success at the district court level, a lot of momentum can be gained before it gets stopped at a higher level, and that's a big advantage. Well, anyway, I just want to kind of hit that issue. Another thing I've heard is that there's a U.S. attorney that failed to go through with the investigation of Hunter Biden before the election, and did this essentially at the request of the Biden people. And I'm a little unclear here. I'm going to check into that for future videos of whether or not this person was able to retain his position as a U.S. attorney, and this was a favorable thing or not. But I'm suspicious of that, but I need to investigate that. But the fact is, though, by doing that and not making the case public, it tended to favor the Biden campaign. Although I'm not sure. At any rate, that's another instance that we have to look at. We seem to have at the present time a very two-tiered justice system that's heavily favorable to the Democrats. I know that another issue that surfaced, I think Trish Regan has put out something on Twitter yesterday, suggested Durham's about to do something, and we'll see if that really happens or not. I think everybody's a little bit ho-hum about it, but we'll see whether or not he actually does file some charges against anybody. I mean, the last case he tried, I think the person who actually altered a government document to the favor of a false FISA warrant basically just got a slap on the wrist. I mean, that's whereas people that trespassed on the Capitol building, I'm not talking about the ones that attacked police officers. I'm talking about the people that walked in after the police stood down and just walked through the place. Or many of them are being held in solitary confinement and so forth. I mean, so you can see that things are not exactly equitable. While Antifa and BLM rioters are just being let off without charges, even though they have evidence against them. Well, anyway, I'll wrap this up for now, but I think this is a very important development, this Jen Psaki comments of the last 2 days, because they're openly admitting that they are collaborating with the big social media monopolies And I think that turns us into a much more contestable issue in federal court than it would have been without that. So until next time.